All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So where we're picking up today is we are working on finishing off these eyes. Again, we want to make sure they're as symmetrical as possible. The easiest way to do that is to make sure that you're using equal size pieces of clay before you get started. So really take the time to not only make sure that these are all smooth and sort of blemish-free, but that they are all essentially the same size. If you're working with different size pieces of clay, well, it's going to make your thing more likely to be asymmetrical or sloppy. Again, make sure your eyes look like they're looking directly forward. Make sure you have space in between for the bridge of the nose. First thing I'm going to do before I start with the eyelids, I'm just going to grab some really tiny pieces of clay, just roll them up between my fingers, make those little tiny little, what's going to be the eye muscle. They really don't have to be very big at all, but we're going to kind of make one and mash them in there. You can actually make them smaller than what I did right there. Most of it's going to get covered up with the lids, but what I'm going to do is going to put a little bit of clay in there, and I'm just going to press it up to the inside. Again, when I'm doing this, I'm really trying my best to keep things symmetrical. Now, nobody's face is completely symmetrical. You know, there's a little asymmetry to all of us, but with that being said, I really do want to kind of make it look like a mirror image from one side to the other. I'm going to grab one of the little pre-made balls of clay that I have, and again, if you need to break up some of the practice pieces that you made already, well, the practice pieces that you made, you know, they are going to be used. So if you are hoping to save them, they're all being sort of redonated into this project. So don't be concerned if like, oh, Mr. B, I used all my clay. If you did everything that I did, you probably did use up all your clay. Save a few pieces. Well, what you're going to do is you're going to break that stuff back up, make it into little clay balls, and continue on. I'm going to start working on, you know, just like we did last time, the lower lids first. And what I want to do, and what I encourage you guys to do, is to try to do these things at the same time. Yes?
Are you showing your screen?
Thank you for letting me know that it wasn't shared. I thought I was. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Alright, sorry about that, guys. Thank you, Mariah, for letting me know. Everything that you might have missed is going to be recorded and posted up anyway, so we can enjoy that part on the video as well. Alright, so like I said, I just took two small pieces of clay, made the little balls, and wedged them into the eye muscles over there, the little tear ducts. And I just took two very similar sized balls of clay, and what I'm doing is I'm starting to flatten them out and stretch them out. Just like we did, and again, what I'm doing right now is nothing new. This is all basically a review. So what we're doing right now is we're making the lower lids. Again, for the lower lids, we want to keep the thickness of the lower lid consistent. And we don't want it to be lumpy. We don't want like thin and thick parts. We really want it to be all one uniform thickness. If you make it lumpy and one part's thick and one part's thin, that usually ends up creating a problem, especially when we try to heat them up to bake them. What the problem is there's that areas sort of heat up at different rates, and what happens is that parts of them start cracking. Now, I've made my two longer pieces of clay out of those little balls, and I keep them about the same size. Again, these are going to be my starts for the eyelids. They're going to be way longer than what we need them to be. That is totally fine. Always easier to make things smaller than to make things bigger. Now what I'm going to do is I'm sort of just kind of curving the bottom of that a little bit. So I've kind of made this into a little sort of happy face. All right, just by running my finger on that edge has gotten just a little bit thicker, but it's still relatively uniform. And you can see that little sort of like light smile kind of curve to it. We don't want to make the bottom lids too curvy, but we do want to kind of get a little bit of a curve to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to sort of rough fit that to my face and just see how that looks right now. And I'm going to do the exact same thing to the other one. So the best way I'm telling you to do this project, to make everything seem symmetrical, is to try to do both pieces, both sides, and it's really only applicable to the eye. Try to do both sides at the same time. So we got to get equal sort of looking pieces, relatively the same size, and then we can constantly compare them. And again, each one of these is going to be curved up a little bit. We want to kind of make them mirror images of one another. They're going to be longer than you need. What we want to do is we can kind of like get in there and kind of see how they'll rough fit. Now, if you're working like me, that means there's going to be a bit of overlap in the middle over here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just try to fit one of these. I'm not pressing it in permanently, but what I'm looking to see is that that lower lid sort of almost gets to the bottom of my iris. It doesn't cover it up, not on the lower one. This gets there. It gets there. It covers up a decent portion of my little tear duct, and then it sort of wraps around nicely. All right. What I want to do right now is I want to kind of take my little toothpick, and I want to kind of continue. If we imagined a line going straight down the middle of the face, I want to kind of go through right over here and try to mark off as if this was a line continuing to go down in the middle of the face. I'm going to use my little toothpick over here just to kind of cut that little bit of extra off. All right. I'm going to go in with the other side, and again, I want to try to go and try to make this thing as symmetrical as I can and make it look the same on both sides. So I'm looking that it hits at the same areas just underneath where that iris starts, if you decided to do this, and that this part just kind of curves up and around. Once again, I'm going to kind of go look with my toothpick, go right down the bridge of this thing. Yes, I'm going to use that little toothpick to just kind of cut a little bit away. That way I get rid of that overlap that was happening in the middle. Two pieces kind of fit just like that. Well, right now, before I do any sort of blending in or anything else, it really is about getting the right fit. And remember, the sculpting of the inside part of the eyes, you're not going to be able to get back in there and do too much fixing, so you really want to make sure it looks good. Look at it from different angles, you can really see that both sides of these things that I did are pretty much the same thickness. All right, pretty much look and fit on the same way on both sides. Look at it from different angles. Okay, what I'm going to do is if I start to feel like I got it, I'm going to press it in just very slightly. If you don't think yours look right, or they don't look symmetrical, or it looks like a problem, pull them off, fix them, or remake them. And all I'm going to do is kind of just press them in ever so slightly so they just kind of hug around the eyeball a little bit. Now we're going to fill this area where my fingertips are later on and make cheeks. So it's okay if it looks like it swoops down a little bit. And what I'll do over here is I'm going to just kind of blend the two of these pieces together. All right. Some of that, a lot of that actually is going to get covered up with the nose later on. But I would like to try to keep it relatively connected. And then out here on the bottom, I'm just going to kind of press some of this lid into the foil a little bit, just so it feels like it really sticks on there. I'm not smushing and pressing the lid part into the eye, you know, so really the place this is going to hold and connect is really going to be on the foil. So right now I've got my lower lids, and we're going to try to just clean up that little eye booger right there. All right, now I got two more pieces of clay ready to go. These are going to be my upper lids, so I'm going to repeat the same process. Just sort of flattening those things out with my fingers, stretching them out, trying to keep the thickness of each one of these things equal. And, you know, doing them at the same time is the best way to keep them the same. And if you see any cracks, folds, or crevices, those are things to just smooth out with your fingers. And again, keep the thickness of the clay relatively even. Try to avoid creating lumps. The best way I can tell you to avoid that is don't try to make this super fast. If you just try to smoosh this and squeeze this and make this part that I'm making now, it's taking me like a good minute to do. You try to do that in like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, this thing will be lumpy, it'll be messy, and you will not be successful. And quite frankly, you know what, most of you are doing that because the stuff you guys, for those of you who are on point and up to date with the work that you've handed in, the work has been very good so far. So if you just keep following my lead, I will take you to a very successful finished project. Alright, we'll see. I'll make this one just a little bit longer. Okay. But again, keep that thickness consistent, alright? Same thickness all the way through. The C lumps, level them out. And again, if you start with the same size bowl of clay, you should have two relatively equal parts. Now, for the upper lid, we're going to want to arch these things a little bit more. So that little smiley sort of shape, that's going to be a little bit more curved. So when I start working on this thing and I'm rubbing my finger along the edge of it, I'm really kind of doing exactly what I did on the lower lid, except this time I'm kind of making it just a little bit more of a smile. But just so it curves around a little bit better. I'm going to go, and as I'm doing to one, I'm going to do the other. Try to make sure that they're about the same or as similar as possible. Again, a little bit more curvier, a little bit more rounder than the lower lids. And do your best. You know, again, no one's perfectly symmetrical, but we do want to start at least as close as we can to make it. All right, now once again, I'm going to do sort of a rough fitting. When I fit this upper lid, if I put it like this is like, I look really sort of intense. I'm like shocked. So what we want to do with the upper lid is we just want to cover up a little bit of the iris. A little bit of the iris, the top part of the iris is going to get kind of covered up. We don't want to make the eye look too sleepy, but we also don't want to have it wide open like it's all geeked up on caffeine. We're going to kind of position this rough fit it, and once again, I'm going to use my little bit of toothpick just to kind of go down the center over here. I want to cut off a little bit of the excess so that this thing will have space and room to fit with the other one. And the sharp edge of your toothpick should be able to really get that going. I'm not pressing anything in yet. I want to just kind of see how everything looks together. I got my second eyelid. Again, rough fitting it. I'm going to look to try to keep the look of the two eyes relatively similar. Remember, some of that iris is getting covered up. We want to make sure that we don't completely cover up that tear duct. I see a little tear duct in there. All right. And we want to make sure we do the second. We always do the top lid second so it can overlap on the lower lid. If I like the fit and the overall curve, and I think I can kind of mess with the curve just a little bit here. Once again, I'm going to take my toothpick and I'm just going to kind of try to do an imaginary line that would be cutting the head exactly in half. I'm going to take just a little bit off of this side as well so that we don't have that extra material, which honestly is going to make a lump, which doesn't really help us right now. What I'm going to do is kind of, again, sort of rough fit my lid on a little bit. Try to just see if I like it now, because once I really smooth this in, it's the done deal. If I don't like it or I made a mistake, I'm ripping the whole thing up and starting from scratch. So I want to look that I see I have some symmetry involved in there. And then what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to kind of just blend this in just a little bit. I'll come back to that in the middle in a minute. Going to reposition so I can see my little tear ducts and get my lid in there. Okay. Once I feel like I have it the way I want it, on the outside, I don't want to completely smooth this out, but I'm going to connect the upper lid to the lower lid. And if you see right here, I left like a little bit of a crease. That is okay. You want to see that little bit of a fold, that's fine. All right. And again, I'm sort of blending those two together here on the side. And if I look at the shape, my eye here, I feel pretty good about it. I'm going to go to the other side. Same thing. I'm going to blend the top lid and the lower lid together. It's okay if right where they touch, right where they meet, if there's still a little crease there, that's actually something we want to keep and preserve. So it'll be part of our look. And then in between the two, carefully so you don't smush out our little tear ducts, but we want to kind of blend that stuff together. Yes, a lot of that's going to get covered up with the bridge of the nose, but we do want to kind of make it into one smooth piece. The smoother you make it, the better. So I've got my eyes. You can see from different angles. All right, you might see that they really do look like they pop out a bit. That's okay. We're going to make a cheek and an eyebrow. That eyebrow is going to raise the forehead up. The cheek is going to kind of fill in underneath here. But we're going to add those cheeks and those things like that after we have our mouth and our nose on. In fact, the cheeks are going to kind of almost be part of our nose because they're going to help hold the nose onto the face. So really, these are our two eyes. And we've gotten set up with the little face, and we are ready to go. And you can see it from all different angles. Once again, what I would tell you is get in there and make sure you photograph this from a variety of different angles. At least 2 pictures at minimum. And you can see with mine, because I did both of them at the same time, kept my whole thing pretty symmetrical, you know, and that's really what you want to do. You want to kind of think that as you're making these parts, these are finished areas. The inside part of this eye, the eyelids, these are finished parts. So when you do store it back in your little box of tricks, really make sure that you don't dump stuff on top of it, that you don't put the cover on and smash it. All right, we want to kind of keep this piece really nice because again, it's really hard to fix things after we put it all together. Our next step is going to be our mouth. We're going to go in the same order the way we practice things. I'm going to go just kind of mush a little bit of this into the forehead, into the foil a little bit, just so it sticks. But your thing should be pretty much fastened right there. And that is the third part of this sculpture. This is how to finish off the eyelids.